Hello, everyone. Welcome to our case study for the landscape ecology course. And our case study is on the community of Shoal Lake 40. Shoal Lake 40 lies between Manitoba and Ontario and is a First Nation reserve on an island with a population of 667 people. The community is all Indigenous people. So in 1917, the community of Shoal Lake 40 was cut off from the mainland because Winnipeg wanted to build a water channel for their drinking water. And as you can see on the map here, the main aqueduct was built from Shoal Lake 40 to Winnipeg. And Shoal Lake 40 used to be on the mainland, but now they were moved to an island. This made it challenging as inhabitants needed a ferry to travel anywhere off of the island, and the ferry would break down numerous times over the course of the years. Some more difficulties are like how far away essential services are, like schools, hospitals, grocery stores, and government facilities. They were over 10 kilometers away. The weather was also a challenge, as in the winter it was freezing cold and the ice roads would be potentially deadly, and people would need to traverse the ice just to cross over from the island.
So, over the course of our landscape ecology course, we looked at how the residents of Shoal Lake 40 were likely to access the services available to them. And these maps show how the path that the residents of Shoal Lake 40 were likely to take to access services changed over time. So you can see that in 2019, this path exited northeast off the island over the lake using the ferry services, or in the winter, crossing over the ice road across the lake. And how we calculated this is we looked at all the different types of land cover in the area. So, there are forests, there are wetlands, there's urban areas, and we assigned resistance values to them. So the higher resistance value, the more difficult it is for somebody to traverse across that land cover. And then we calculated least cost paths. So these aren't the paths that are necessarily the shortest distance, as the crow flies, but they are the paths that cumulatively add up to the lowest resistance values. And just over to the side, you can see that technically these maps are using conductance instead of resistance. A conductance is just the inverse of resistance. So instead of high resistance values being hardest to travel through, low conductance values are most difficult to travel through. This changed in 2019 after the completion of Freedom Road. This was a project that had been in the works for many, many years. It began being constructed in 2017, and all Freedom Road is a road that exits from the west of the island that is maintained all year round. So the ferry does not need to be in use any longer, and people don't have to cross potentially dangerous ice conditions in the winter to get across the lake. And you can see how this changed the least cost paths in 2020 after Freedom Road had been constructed. Now, the easiest way to get off the island is via Freedom Road in all seasons. Even though the total distance may be longer, this is still beneficial to the residents who have to put less effort into accessing those services we talked about earlier.
So what do the maps not show? There are still socioeconomic consequences for living in Shoal Lake 40, which we'll see on the next slide. One of the main debates is the easier to access services. Are they the best services? This means that the quality of services may not be adequate for people, even though they are the closest schools or government facilities, they may not be the best. So what's next? The challenges that still face the community include that there are no high schools for the teenagers of Shoal Lake 40. There are issues with waste disposal because there needs to be some sort of transport to get the waste off of the island. And the median income of Shoal Lake 40 is 38,000, which is less than half of what the median is in Manitoba, with 84,000. So some questions that we would have for the Shoal Lake 40 community is, how much has the construction of Freedom Road changed your everyday life? And what are some concerns that aren't obvious to someone who doesn't live in Shoal Lake 40? Thank you for listening to our presentation.